Does the person you are with encourage you to read? You have to ask, what does he bring for me? Roses or books? If someone has a stake in making you better, that person will push you towards books. Books are what we all need.
Acharya ji, namaskar once again. So, we the student of IRMA is organizing an event Parichintan. And the idea is basic that we want to make the school going students aware of our freedom fighters because we feel that they are going away from them. And we also see that less and less students are getting known to the freedom fighters, to the nation builders. So we want to know, especially from your perspective, how can we make our school children more inclined towards the nation building approaches? How can we make them more nationalistic if required? Because we need leaders. We need real heroes, not real heroes. How can we do this?
See, first of all, the very meaning of nation and nationalism needs to be clarified. We assume as if nationalism is a virtue in itself, as if it's an honorable goal in itself, unconditionally, unexceptionally. That's not true. A lot of thinkers, philosophers have repeatedly told us that like any other ideology, nationalism can be very divisive and can therefore be very violent. Think of so many wars that have been fought in the name of nationalism. Think of the Second World War. Closer home, Rabindranath Tagore was one very powerful opponent of nationalism because he had seen the horrors that blind ideology brings along with it. So, a nation is a group of people brought together, sharing something in common. Now, what is it that they share in common? What is it that binds them together? That has to be investigated first of all. If the basis of the nation is race or ethnicity or language, color, creed, then you would see very clearly that there is a big problem. Because then nationalism is founded on the basis of man versus man. Me versus you. we have the same skin color, so we are one nation. Or we share the same language, so we are one nation. And therefore, somebody has to be the other. Somebody has to be treated as the outsider or the enemy or the pariah. Do you see this? If I say that we can be together as a nation only because we share a certain common language or a certain common religion, do you see the dangers that come with it? Or we are one nation because we are Aryans. That's how much of Germany wanted it in the 30s and 40s. So that's the reason why nationalism, like any other ideology, becomes problematic. However, there is a very distinct kind of nationalism that can be very virtuous. But only that kind of nationalism, a nationalism that is not divisive, a nationalism that is not founded on what separates the two of us, instead founded on what unites the two of us. Think of the various kind of nationalities you know of. Are they not all founded on divisions? A group of people, they get together and they say, we are a nation. We are a nation because we have a common shared characteristic. And therefore we are separate from somebody else. Think of why India had to be politically divided. What was Jinnah's argument? What was the two-nation theory? He said Hindus and Muslims, they are not just two different religions. They are two different nations because everything about them is distinct, exclusive. So when you have a nationalism that is founded on differences, then nationalism becomes toxic, violent, and leads to horrible consequences. So we are saying, let there be a nationalism that is not founded on the differences between man and man. Instead, it is founded on what is common between you and me, man and man. Now, what is it that we share? Now that takes us into philosophy, rather metaphysics. What is common between the two of us? If you look at one person and then at another, you would only perceive differences, right? Even if you say that they share a common language, the dialect or the accent would be different. Even if you say that they share a common religion, yet they might be investing themselves in different stories or different verses or different gods. So, by definition, one person is always very distinct from the other, and the differences are countless. Man is different from woman, is he not? The young person is different from the old person. The rich says he is different from the poor. Right? The ones living in the East say we are different from the Westerners. Pakistan got made on the basis of religion, but then had to be divided on the basis of language. So differences never end. You find one commonality, and behind that commonality, there would be 10 differences lurking. The moment you found your nationalism on something that is not absolutely universal, you are just inviting discord, strife, hatred, limitations. And none of that is any good, obviously. Are you getting it? Huh? So, the Germans say we are one people, the French say we are another people. The Brits say, oh, we belong to Europe, but we still are a distinct class. We don't even want to be a part of the Euro. Why do we do that? Because the ego thrives only in differences. The ego loves to have boundaries. Ego is another name for boundaries. The bounded self is called the ego. Right? So most of the nationalism that you see actually arises from the ego and is therefore not auspicious at all. You need a nationalism that arises from something beyond the ego. And therefore I say, let there be a nationalism based on the unifying principle. That unifying principle, as far as I have seen, is enunciated most clearly in Vedanta. I do not say it is not mentioned or pointed at anywhere else. But Vedanta spells it out quite neatly. That unifying principle is called the borderless self, Atma. That clarity which is not tainted by personality. When you say you know something, when you say you believe in something, when you say you understand something, that is never pure or absolute, because that is colored by, marred by, spoiled by your particular personality. So the Hindu has one belief, the Muslim has another belief, the Christian has another one. Right? You believe in one thing when you are 15. By the time you are 35, your beliefs change. So our thoughts, our ideologies, opinions are not absolute. There is a long shadow of our personal self over them. And therefore all ideologies, we said, are not really worthy of being given a very high position. They cannot be seated as the absolute. Vedanta talks of that which dissolves the differences between us. That which dissolves the ego itself, because the ego is what separates the two of us, right? When I say I mean that I am distinct from you. The ego is the divisive principle. I implies separation. The moment I say I mean me versus the world. I am there and the world is separate or distinct. So I say I, you too say I, and the moment we utter I, we mean that the two of us are not the same. I-ness is separation. Therefore, I-ness is suffering. Hence, can we have a nation that is founded with the objective objective to dissolve I-ness? No. Remain patient. Let's not declare this as too absurd or impractical or utopian. Can we have a nation founded with the very objective to create conditions in which the ego is dissolved or sublimated or purified? Only that kind of nationalism is proper. Let's create a nation that does not exist to quarrel with the others, that does not exist to stand separate from the others. Let's create a nation that does not take its identity from resistance to the others. Where does Pakistan, for example, take its identity from? It says, I am different from India and that's my identity. And that's the reason they have to be compulsively hostile against India. Do you see that? The same thing applies to all the nations of the world. The same thing applies even to India as it currently exists. There have to be borders, there has to be discord, acrimony, strife, the threat of war. And the threat of war pleases the population so much, does it not? In fact, nationalism would lose its charm and romance if there were no wars. Wars consolidate the feeling of nationalism, do they not? When an enemy attacks you, you feel so much more of a national identity. Right? No, none of that is good. Obviously not good. So the basis of nationalism has to be an inward approach that takes care of the ego. The Constitution must say that the state exists to uplift its citizens internally. Obviously, internal upliftment would require conducive external conditions. To that extent, the physical world has to be taken care of. You cannot say you want to address somebody's ego problem without taking care of his or her environment. You'll have to take care of education, health, media. You'll have to protect the genuine interests of the various groups of citizens as they exist, no? And then you will say, ultimately, everything has to boil down to the pure self. Yes, there is the legislature, there is the executive, there is the judiciary. All these would function. There is the media. There are the laws and the sub-laws. There are the various houses of the parliament. There is a federal structure. All that is there. But the purpose of all that has to be the inner freedom of the individual. That's the proper nation, in which everything functions with the purpose of liberating the individual. Now, is that not a worthy goal? Should not the nation be founded on that basis? Yes. So that's the kind of nationalism you have to bring to the new generation. Are you getting it? If you bring the militant kind of nationalism to the new generation, you're not doing them any good. When you talk of freedom fighters, you must talk of those who strove for political freedom. Equally, you have to talk of those who strove for inner freedom. Otherwise, it becomes just a case of one people fighting the other people out of hatred, resistance, and otherness. And that leads to a lot of falseness, artificiality. Then you have to ignore the facts, you have to rewrite history, you have to weave narratives, you have to somehow manage to cast imagination as facts. And all that is quite childish and funny, right? Except for the fact that it can lead to terrible consequences. So, bring the reality of life to the young. The reality of life as we live it, as we see it, is the reality of the ego. If they can see how the inner thing operates, they will also see its futility. Are you getting it? You don't need to then teach nationalism as something separate from life. If they can see how life is founded on division and strife and suffering, then they'll want to end it, right? And when men get together in their common mission of ending suffering, a noble nation is born. Don't you want that kind of nation? People are getting together so that they can together eliminate the suffering of mankind. And since they are getting together, they constitute a nation. Will that not be a very, very noble and desirable nation? Please tell me. Yes? Or would you want people to get together to pelt stones on some other group? Is that the kind of nationalism that you want? It could be stones when it comes to small groups, and it becomes missiles when it comes to large and powerful groups, right? 20 people on one side pelt stones on 20 people on the other side. And when these 20 people become a nation of 20 crore people, then they pelt missiles on the other 20 crore people, right? And they also then get together and form groups and coalitions. So Russia is scared of the NATO. And different kinds of groupings are happening, all with the purpose of defending the self and defeating the other. And the more that happens, the more we come closer to catastrophe as a people. Are you getting it? We do not want to repeat history. In history, nations have never been founded on the right basis. And therefore, those who could understand life, like we said Tagore, had to reject nationalism. They said nationalism is the worst kind of toxicity. Let's not reject nationalism per se. Let's just say, let there be an all-embracing nationalism. Let there be a unifying nationalism. Let there be an enlightened nationalism. Let there be a nationalism that is not founded with the object to inflict suffering on the other. You can inflict suffering on the other only if you do not see that you and the other are the one. The moment you start seeing the underlying oneness, it becomes impossible to inflict suffering on the other. Right? Can we as Indians come together on this noble basis? And that would be the real Bharat. India cannot be about geographical frontiers, a location on the world map. India is just too big to be contained on a world map. India is just too transcendental to be marked as a piece of earth. Who is an Indian? An Indian is someone who understands the very basis of life. The one who sees that you are born to be liberated. Only such a fellow deserves to be called an Indian. Because India, not the political country India, I'm talking of the real India, I'm talking of the very concept of Bharat. The real India is founded on understanding, realization, bodh. We want to understand. India is the place where the urge to understand hit the human for the first time. India is the cradle of religion itself. And true religiosity is about understanding life and therefore getting liberated from its bondages. That's who an Indian is, who wants to understand what this thing called the self is, what is meant by relationships, who am I, who's the other one, what is this thing called life, why am I alive, what is death. Only someone who is conscious enough, keen enough, and courageous enough to go into these questions deserves to be called an Indian. And that's the kind of nationalism we need. A nationalism founded on understanding. From where I am looking, 140 crore people do not deserve to be called as Bharatiya. They may continue to hold the Indian passport, that's a separate matter. But when it comes to being Indian nationals, well, that's a very elite thing. That's a thing that requires a lot of qualification. Being a citizen is another matter. Desh and Rashtra are not the same. So when you say that you want to invoke nationalism in young people, you must know what is it that you want to educate them in. Kindly do not indoctrinate them in some sectarian or divisive ideology. That's not nationalism. Real nationalism takes you within, and only that kind of nationalism is deserving enough to survive. Otherwise, the world has seen the perils of blind and violent nationalism for good. Are you getting it?
Acharya, I have a follow-up question on this. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Acharya, in one of the session, one of the seeker asked ki we are the proponent of Vasudev Kutumbakam. And on that, you mentioned ki first to talk about such a big idea, we need to know pehle ghar pe we have to take him care of. Now when we're talking about such ideas that need to be spread all across the globe, but we see that students, or in general the educated class, or are not interested, or not reading, or not paying the amount of energy towards it. We are seeing that they are moving towards the ideologies that are not ours. So how do we deal with this? We want to spread this idea, but if the other side is not that much interested, or if that side is not that much given uh, awareness to that side, how should we tackle it?
No, I don't think it's very difficult to bring this simple thing out to the other person, provided if, first of all, you as the spreader understand it. Why am I saying that? Because internally we are all one in terms of our disquiet, misery, suffering. Does not matter who the other person is. He suffers just as you do. And all human activity is some kind of an effort, conscious or unconscious, to get rid of one's suffering. Why will the other not listen if you can show him a way out of his suffering? He is trying to somehow gain peace and fulfillment in his own way. Can you display to him a plausible way to attain peace? Can you diagnose him correctly? But that will not be possible if you approach the other with a fixed set of thoughts of your own. To be able to look at the other, you have to be impartial. You cannot say the other is the other and is therefore despicable. He does not listen, he does not pay attention, he is violent, he is fallen. If you approach the other with such thoughts, then it will be very difficult to see the other's reality. And if you will not be able to see his reality, how will you be able to help him? And if you fail in providing help, why will he agree that your path is suitable for him as well? We all are in need of help, are we not? And because we do not see where to get help from, we keep trying crazily in our own distorted ways. We do not understand why we are not restful. We do not understand what is wrong with life. Why do we get angry? Why do we get anxious? And this is the story of entire mankind, right? We do not understand that, and therefore we try out all kinds of shallow and rather counterproductive solutions. That's what everybody is doing. So if you can display to a human being who he is and why he suffers, he is bound to listen to you, irrespective of where he comes from, what his religion is, what his age or gender is, what his economic status is. His ultimate objective is fulfillment, joy, peace, is it not? So if you can bring him closer to his objective, he will listen to you. If the youngsters of today are not listening to your advice, it is probably because we do not understand the youngsters. We do not see where they are coming from and what they are trying and where they want to reach. Their ways appear to us different from ours. So we treat them as the other. Sometimes we want to treat them even as aliens. But they are human beings, right? And they want the same thing as each of us does. Is there anybody in the world who does not feel thirsty? Could be an African, could be an American, a Christian, a Buddhist, a man, a woman. We all need water, right? That's what. We all need water. Irrespective of what the color of our skin is and what the color of our ideology is, we all need water. And that is the reason why I am trying to bring Vedanta to the masses. Water is possible. And a nation that does not divide is possible. A nation that is good for all is possible. And remember, you cannot have goodness in isolation. You cannot have the welfare of one people at the cost of the other people. It is the law of existence. When we will rise together. If you find a people rising by subjugating somebody else, then you are not seeing clearly. If you really have to do well for yourself, that cannot happen at the cost of others. It's not a zero-sum game. You cannot colonize a country as the colonizers of the last few centuries did and hope that the result will be great for you. Don't we know that the Second World War was fought because the great colonial powers were competing among themselves? Don't we know that? In fact, it was an urge to have more and more colonies that brought these European powers face to face. Britain had the early mover advantage and had colonized much of Asia, and France too had colonies, and Germany just didn't like that. So when you look at the bigger picture, you realize that if you exploit someone, it's not just the so-called other that suffers. The exploiter will soon discover that he too is the exploited one. We believe in duality. We lead dualistic lives. We behave as if by hurting the other, we can benefit and prosper. That does not happen. We need a non-dualistic nationalism. Non-dualistic, advaitic. Therefore, the greatest philosophy that looks inwards is Advaita Vedanta.
Namaste Acharya ji and good evening to all of you. So my name is Praveen Sharma. I am currently in final year of PGDRM program. And sir, basically my question is that if we look the current scenario, how the AI tools like ChatGPT will board someone helping the student basically who are in UG, are in PG also, or even in B school. So they are taking help from the AI tools and making their work easier. So is it becoming a barrier or hinder our creativity basically? And the question is that is it someone who's trying to intentionally making the AI tools to limit the creativity of the people? Is it some entrepreneurs who's doing this intentionally? And if yes, then how can we prevent from this? And how can maintain our creativity in our daily routine life?
No, nobody is hatching a conspiracy to turn you uncreative. It's a piece of technology and it depends on you how you want to use it. Hmm? It's a very far-fetched thought. Somebody or a group of people or a consortium of companies, they got together to turn the entire population of the world uncreative. And to rob you of your creativity, they gave you AI and its products like ChatGPT. None of that. AI is anyway not creative. Then how can it rob you of your creativity? AI at best,
But it stops our
it stops your
thinking. It makes our
no that
work
simply
and
no,
work easier.
that simply means that your thinking was already mechanical in the first place. Therefore, another machine could supplant it. A machine can be better than another machine. A machine cannot be better than consciousness itself. So, if you feel that AI is making your task easier, it simply means that the task that you were doing was anyway not creative. AI cannot create something original. Originality is an exclusive virtue of consciousness. So I'm asking you, if you ask ChatGPT something, can it choose not to answer? So that's what. But consciousness can choose to remain silent. And consciousness can know that silence is probably the best response in certain situations. AI will never know that.
Sir, is it? But AI also is created by us only, some group of people. So I'm asking that is there any intention from them?
No, they've just brought a technology to you and they'll probably commercialize it, and that's normal human activity that's been happening. When somebody made a car, he was not conspiring to rob you of your legs. And you could have said, the car has come or the automobile or the bike has come so that we stop using our legs and very soon we all will become lame. So there is no conspiracy. And even if there is a conspiracy, let's hypothetically accept that. Why do you have to fall to that conspiracy? I mean, you have to write a song, let's say, for your girlfriend. Why do you want to depend on ChatGPT for that? And that software can write you a song. But you'd be a very poor lover if you depend on machines to write you a song for your girlfriend. Huh?
Thank you.